How do we find the balance about speaking about it without making it such a big deal? Like now that I'm in my 40s, I miss my 20s when it was just easy to have sex. Now it feels like it's complicated and you have to have all sorts of conversations and it's politicized and stuff. Is there a way to have a conversation about it without making it such a big deal that everyone's terrified of it and we're like stepping on eggshells? I'd really love simple sex to come back.
Well, I think in your 20s, you usually had a group of like intimates around you that you felt comfortable just being open with. And those relationships often fall away as life gets more complicated and stressful, as you have a relationship, a marriage, if you become a parent. That kind of intimacy with friends that you can just be really love with about like what you're doing and what you like and goes away. And so you have to consciously curate those relationships for yourself. You have to make an effort to keep that kind of connection, not even with people you're partnering with sexually, but people you can be open with about your sex life, sexual interests, sexual activities. Those are the people that fall away. And often in your 20s, when you're first experimenting, you're first learning about yourself sexually, that's when you're most likely to endlessly talk about yourself sexually, because it's helping you frame and understand yourself. Because explaining yourself to someone often means you're explaining yourself to yourself and coming to a better understanding of yourself. And you do that less the older you get. And I'm old, so I know. And I've had to, I make an effort to have people in my life that I can still be that open with and initiate those kind of conversations when they're welcome on both ends, as opposed to just blurting that out like you often did in your 20s.
Hi. So you guys talked a lot about the different ways that you can kind of do better as parents, but there's so much research on how to raise a drug-free kid, how to raise an alcohol-free kid, which is
good luck.
I mean, what it is. But what's the kind of statistics and methods that you found to raise the most sexually healthy kid?
Well, you're not looking.
What?
So I'm not sure that there really is a straightforward answer to this. I don't know, Debbie. I mean, do you?
So yeah, I mean, it's not like step by step like how to build a desk, right?
Yeah,
But the general idea is like, to have a conversation and not the talk, right? So
Ongoing.
Yeah. So like since
Ongoing and unwelcome. Your kid is not going to want to have that conversation with you.
This is interesting to me as a parent of younger kids. I have a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old. That in conversations with other parents about like how should children be taught how babies are made, it turns out like first of all there's very little, at least in my exploration, like good literature about this. The books for kids are not very good, in my opinion. No offense if anyone's written one. And what's really weird is there's this idea that's really pervasive among parents that I've encountered that you should wait until they ask, and then you should answer only what they ask. So if they ask, where do babies come from? You say they're made of a sperm and an egg. And if you're 4 years old and that makes no sense, like, tough. Basically, they have to get to the point where the current sort of parenting thinking is where they can ask a question that they don't have the information to ask, right?
Right.
And so how is a baby, how is a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old or a 9-year-old going to know what to ask? And there's no other topic as a parent that I would approach that way, right? I wouldn't say like, well, actually, like, I'm going to wait for you to ask about tolerance or all these other sort of important values, and then I'm going to teach you those things when you unlock the lock with just exactly the right passcode. So I think one answer is sort of what Dan just said. What did you say? You said unwelcome and ongoing, right?
Yeah. Like I have a 21-year-old son, and he is straight and had the gayest parents. The religious right's opposition to gay people adopting because we'd make our kids gay. If my husband Terry and I couldn't make a kid gay, nobody can make a kid gay. But it was my experience talking to him that he'd want to talk to us about anything. And I knew that I had to talk to him about it. And I would say to him, like, we would go on, like, I don't drive, so we would go on a walk so we didn't have to look each other in the eyes. It's one of the pieces of advice they often give parents when you're gonna have a sex talk with your kids is go for a drive so they don't have to, like, make eye contact and be embarrassed. So we would go on a hike and I would do it wasn't a conversation, it was a download. Here are all the things that I think you need to know. And he would go, shut up, I don't wanna talk about it. I know it already, Dad. And I would say, you might know it already, but I know for sure that you would say you knew it already to avoid this conversation. So the sooner you let me say all this, the sooner we're done. And I would do the download. Now my sample size is 1. Like maybe you have different kids.
You really do have to force it, I think. And I talked to multiple people who told me weirdly the exact same anecdote when I asked them about their conversations with their parents, where they said, like, not only did I not have conversations with my parents, when I had to bring home a permission slip from school saying we're doing sex ed, I faked my parents' signature because I couldn't even bear to have them know that I was receiving sex ed because I thought that they might use that as an occasion to talk to me.
It's like literally, it's like violation. It's like violating even like the concept loosely in the margins around the edges about consent. I had non-consensual conversations with my kid about sex that he did not want to have. That he withdrew his consent to have these conversations, and I still talked to him about everything I thought he needed to know, which included consent, which included pleasure, which included masturbation, and because I'm me, included things that like most parents wouldn't think to talk about their kids. Traumatic masturbatory syndrome. Like I know that there are some boys out there who put their penises between mattresses and box springs to masturbate and then can't ejaculate during partnered sex because the inside of a person doesn't feel like a crusty mattress laying on a crusty box springs. And so I told him that and he was like, shut up! But if he had wound up doing that and I could have prevented that, how guilty would I have felt?
There's also a really, not to move
And
away
don't
from the
tweet anything I'm
box
saying
spring.
about my kid, because it'll murder me.
There's also a really terrific curriculum called Our Whole Lives that was developed by sex therapists and sex educators decades ago and is offered through Unitarian churches. You don't have to be a member of a Unitarian church. I know some people that like never go to any services of any kind, but would like drop their kid off every Sunday for like the Unitarian sex ed, basically. And it's a really great curriculum. There's actually the high school portion of it is used in the most effective college sexual assault prevention program known so far. And so that's like a very important
It's the closest we get in America to what the Dutch do in their grade schools.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's just another possibility, the Our Whole Lives, the OWL program.
Yes. We are out of time. I'm sorry. Thank you for being such a great crowd. Thank you for actually asking questions.